They buried a crown in plain sight, but called it a uniform. What this really means is that destiny often enters through the servant's gate while pride waits at the front door. This is the story of how a woman born into wealth and a man hidden in humility met at the crossroads of truth and deception. Amaka Doyle returned to Lagos the way Harmattan returns to the city suddenly and everywhere at once. For 3 years she had lived in London, surrounded by stone walls and grey skies. Her degree in architecture had sharpened her mind, but her spirit felt starved of colour. London gave her discipline, yes, but not the rhythm of drums after rain, not the red dust of home that clung to sandals and stories. Now, as her taxi rolled up the long driveway of the Doyle estate, she felt both anticipation and unease twisting inside her. The Doyle estate was a world of its own, a kingdom within walls. White plastered buildings rose clean and proud, surrounded by clipped green lawns that looked almost too perfect to be real. Gardeners bent low with quiet precision, fountains whispered silver threads of water, and polished marble steps glowed in the afternoon light. To many, this was paradise. To Amaka, it felt like a cage of luxury, a gilded prison with invisible chains. At the front, Mrs. Ngozi Doyle waited, tall and regal in her wrapper of shimmering blue lace. Her embrace was brief, the kind that preserved perfume and pressed no warmth into the skin. "Amaka," she said, her voice clipped, eyes scanning the travel clothes her daughter wore. "You look tired, but no matter. The Adabios are hosting a gala this weekend, and I've already chosen your dress. A blue one, perfect for photographs." Beside her, Ify Doyle was already holding her phone high, lips puckered in a selfie pout. "Sister, welcome back. You won't believe the new Paul Cabana father built has speakers hidden inside the ceiling. Oh, my friends will die when they see us together." She was a whirl of energy, more concerned with curating her online world than noticing the shadows under Amaka's eyes. Chief David Doyle, their father, was absent. As usual, business had called him abroad. His presence often filled the house, but his absences were even larger. And then there was the gate. The heavy iron gate groaned as it closed, its sound carrying across the courtyard like a note from an old drum. Standing there was a man Amaka had never seen before. He wore the uniform of the estate gateman, but he stood with a posture too steady, too deliberate, as if he belonged to something greater than the role he played. His eyes dark, deep, unwavering met hers for a single heartbeat. He gave a respectful nod, then returned to his work with movements calm and efficient. "Who is that?" Amaka asked quietly, more to herself than to anyone else. Ife barely glanced. "Oh, that's Eric. He's been here a few months. A little too serious, if you ask me. Never smiles. Strange man." She was already back to her screen, scrolling through comments. But Amaka saw something else. In a house where everything was performance, this man seemed solid and real. He was like a wildflower sprouting through cracks in marble unexpected, stubborn, beautiful. The next afternoon, the estate roared with laughter and music. Ife had invited half her social circle. Bright dresses shimmered like tropical birds around the pool. The bass from the speakers rattled the air as girls lounged on inflatable swans, gossiping about fashion, about trips abroad, about who was dating whom. Amaka sat at a shaded table, sketchbook in hand, trying to draw a design that had been tugging at her mind since her flight. A community library. Something small, but full of light and hope. As her pencil moved, she felt the space between her world and her sister's widen. Then it happened. Ife snapped her fingers sharply, her voice cutting through the music. "Eric, Eric." The clippers stopped. The man by the hedge straightened and walked over, quiet as a shadow. "My bag," Ife said, pointing lazily toward the house. "The pink one with the gold chain. Go fetch it." It was a simple request, but her tone made the air heavy. It was not a request at owlette, was an order, meant to show power in front of her friends. A few of the girls giggled, eyes bright with mischief. Eric stood still, his gaze steady. His voice came low, calm, and firm. "I am the gateman, Miss Ife. My duty is to secure the gate and grounds. The porters are inside. I can call one for you." The laughter died. Even the music seemed to hush. Ife's cheeks burned red. She had never been refused before. "Are you disobeying me?" she whispered, venom beneath her smile. Eric's voice did not tremble. "I am doing the work I was hired for." The silence pressed down. Ife's friends exchanged glances, half shocked, half delighted at the drama. Amaka's heart hammered with second-hand shame. She rose quickly. "I'll get it," she said, her voice tight. She walked past Eric without meeting his eyes, collected the bag, and handed it to her sister. But the moment lingered, heavy and sharp. The invisible lines of class and pride had been drawn in plain sight, and Amaka knew exactly which side she stood on. That evening, as the house settled and the scent of jasmine drifted through the gardens, Amaka wandered near the staff quarters. Behind a curtain of bougainvillea, she heard a voice low, warm, steady. Eric was seated on the steps, phone pressed to his ear. She didn't mean to listen, but his words carried in the night air. "No, Mama Funk, don't worry. I'll send the money tomorrow. The children must start school with everyone else. Buy the books, and sandals for Toby. His are torn." Amaka froze, heart catching at the tenderness in his tone. A gateman talking about school fees, about children she had never met, about sacrifice that sounded far heavier than his modest pay could bear. When he ended the call, she stepped into view. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, embarrassed. "I didn't mean to eavesdrop. I couldn't help hearing." His expression softened, almost a smile. "It is a small thing." "No," Amaka said quietly. "It isn't small at all. For those children, it is everything." For the first time, his eyes truly met hers. "Education is not small," he said, his voice steady as stone. "It is the foundation. Without it, walls fall. With it, even the poor can stand tall." The word foundation struck her deeply. She was an architect, and she understood the literal meaning. But from his mouth, it sounded like more than concrete and steel. It sounded like destiny. They talked until the sky turned indigo and the crickets sang. He told her about his village in the east, about nights spent reading Achebe and Soyinka by dim bulbs, about his love for community. She listened, drawn into his quiet passion. For the first time since her return, she felt alive. A few days later, fate tested their bond. Driving back from a project site, Amaka's car sputtered and died on a lonely tree-lined road. She tried the ignition again and again, but nothing. Her phone showed no signal. The sun was sinking, shadows stretching like fingers across the road. Fear pricked at her skin. Then she heard it, the rhythmic ring of a bicycle bell. Relief surged as the cyclist came into view. "Eric." "Miss Amaka," he said, brows furrowed with concern. "What is wrong?" "My car won't start," she sighed. "I think it's finished." He leaned his bike against a tree and lifted the hood. His hands moved with quiet skill, checking connections, testing wires. After a few minutes, he tightened a loose battery terminal with a small tool he carried in his pouch. "Try now." She turned the key. The engine roared back to life. She laughed in relief, the sound carrying into the evening. "You're a lifesaver." "Thank you. But what are you doing out here?" "There is a community center down the road," he said simply. "On my off days, I help the children with their reading." Then he spoke of his dream not just to help a few, but to build schools, to create a foundation where children could learn science, art, and critical thinking, not just to survive, but to lead. His voice burned with passion, lighting up the twilight around them. Amaka listened, captivated. She saw not just a gateman, but a man who carried a vision greater than wealth. A man building foundations not of brick and glass, but of hope and dignity. And in that moment, something inside her shifted. But the Doyle house was not blind. At dinner, the polished silver clinked against fine china as silence sat heavy at the table. Then EIFA struck. "I saw you with the gateman this morning, sister," she said sweetly. "You spend a lot of time with him." Mrs. Ngozi Doyle did not look up from her plate. Her voice came cold as marble. "Appearances matter, Amaka. We are the Doyles. We do not grow familiar with staff. It is unseemly." Amaka's fork clattered against her plate. "Familiar?" she shot back. "I was being respectful. I was talking to another human being. Something my sister could learn." Ify rolled her eyes dramatically. "Please, he's just the gateman. What could you possibly have to talk about?" Amaka's anger flared. "Books, dreams, more than you'll ever get from your shallow friends." But it was their mother's next words that cut deepest. "This is not about kindness. This is about your future, your reputation. You are a Doyle. Your father and I did not give you this life so you could throw it away on sentiment. Choose wisely. A gateman cannot be your equal. The words hung heavy in the air. Amaka clenched her fists under the table, but in her heart, a decision was already forming. She would choose integrity over appearances. And the man at the gate was far more than he seemed was about to change her life forever. In the quiet of the polished Lagos office, the sound of pen against paper carried the weight of inheritance. Barrister Henry Adwale sat across from the man who the Doyles knew only as Eric. To Henry, he was Chinedu Owen, the sole heir to a fortune that could move markets. November 15, Henry said, sliding a document across the mahogany desk. The year of humility ends. Are you ready, Chinedu? The young man leaned back, running a hand over his face. Ready? I don't know. This year has taught me more than all my schooling. I've seen what wealth blinds us from the dignity of sweat, the beauty in small kindness. I've seen Amaka Doyle. And now, I fear that when she learns the truth, she'll believe everything between us was a lie. Henry studied him over his glasses, voice low and steady. Your father's will was never about testing women, or families, or love. It was about testing you, but be careful. Fear makes men foolish. Do not try to test her heart. Trust it, or you'll poison what you want to protect. Chinedu nodded. Back at the Doyle estate, the tension from the dinner table still hung in the air. Amaka sat at her desk, pouring herself into blueprints for a community learning center. The lines on the paper were more than walls, they were her quiet rebellion, a statement that purpose mattered more than status. Her mother swept in without knocking, her perfume filling the room before her presence did. Still wasting time on this charity project? She asked, her voice sharp. She tossed a glossy magazine onto the desk. The headline gleamed. Eco-Atlantic rising, luxury hotels and high-end developments. Amaka, darling, this is the kind of work you should be chasing. The Adabio's nephew just returned from Harvard, an investment banker. Perfect match. We are dining with them Friday. Don't be late. Amaka closed her eyes, breathing slowly. Mother, I am not interested in your matchmaking. And this project is not a waste, it's meaningful. It matters. Her mother's lips tightened. Meaningful doesn't build reputations. Meaningful doesn't protect the Doyle name. Your fixation on the lower classes is becoming reckless. Amaka's voice dropped, low but firm. It's not a fixation, it's faith. Faith that every child deserves a chance, and no amount of marble or glass will ever change that truth. Mrs. Doyle turned sharply, leaving in a cloud of disapproval. But Amaka only bent lower over her blueprints, her resolve hardening with every stroke of her pencil. The following week, whispers began to swirl through Lagos's high society like harmattan dust. At luncheons, polo matches, and gallery openings, the same rumor surfaced with poisonous persistence. Did you hear? Amaka Doyle is infatuated with their gateman. They say he has her wrapped around his little finger. Perhaps it's just rebellion. Embarrassing for the family, really. The story grew legs. Some said she was defying her parents. Others suggested the man was manipulating her, playing on her naivety. Each retelling twisted the tale further. Amaka felt the weight of those whispers pressing against her. Invitations became fewer. Smiles from old friends turned brittle. Even the NGO she was designing for began asking cautious questions. But the worst blow came from inside her own home. Effie Doyle, restless with jealousy, had been watching Eric closely. She noticed the black sedan that sometimes came for him, too polished for a common gateman. She noticed the way his voice shifted when he answered certain calls, formal, commanding, far beyond his supposed station. One quiet afternoon, hiding behind a thick hibiscus bush, she overheard Barrister Adwale speaking with him in the garden. The portfolio has performed exceptionally well this quarter, the lawyer was saying. We need your signature to authorize the diversification into international markets. Effie's eyes widened. Portfolios? Investments? This was no gateman's language. Her mind raced, and in her haste, she drew the wrong conclusion. He wasn't who he said he was. He must be a con man, a fraud, and her sister, her perfect, confident, admired sister, was falling for him. She ran to her mother, breathless with manufactured urgency. Mama, Eric is a criminal. I heard him with a lawyer. He's talking about portfolios, investments, signatures. He's scamming us. He's scamming Amaka. Mrs. Doyle's face drained of color. I knew it. I warned her. That man is dangerous. And just like that, mother and daughter forged an alliance of fear and fury. Meanwhile, Eric wrestled with a storm of his own. The closer the day came for his mask to fall, the heavier his fear grew. What if her love is just pity? He asked himself in the quiet of his quarters. What if she loves me only because I am different from her world, because I am poor, because I am rebellion? When she learns I am heir to a fortune, will she still believe I am real? Fear gnawed at him, and in a moment of weakness, he made a dangerous choice. He called his old friend Kelvin Adabio, a man who thrived in Lagos high society. Polished, charming, dripping with wealth and confidence, Kelvin was everything Eric had hidden away. "I need you to do something for me," Eric said, voice tight. "There is a woman, Amaka Doyle. Test her. Show her your world, the world of money and glamour. See how she reacts." Kelvin raised an eyebrow, sipping his drink slowly. "Test her? Chinedu, you've fallen for her, haven't you? This is madness." "Please," Eric insisted. "I must know if her love is true." Kelvin sighed, shaking his head. "You're playing with fire, my friend, but if this is what you want, I'll do it." At an art gallery opening that weekend, fate moved its pieces. Amaka attended with her mother, her eyes more on the paintings than on the crowd. That's when Kelvin appeared, tailored suit, easy charm, and a smile that drew people in. Mrs. Doyle practically glowed. Finally, she thought, a man worthy of my daughter. She introduced them eagerly, already imagining the headlines. Kelvin invited Amaka for drinks the next evening, and her mother accepted on her behalf before she could refuse. The lounge they met at was all glass, gold, and whispers of money. Kelvin spoke of Monaco, of Geneva, of yachts and art auctions. He told stories with flair, but his eyes never lingered on her, heart only on her face, her name, her status. Amaka listened politely, but inside she felt the emptiness of it all. His words sparkled, but they had no weight. When she spoke about her learning center project, his attention drifted. He nodded, but his eyes glazed. And in that moment, she realized the difference. Eric cared. Eric asked questions that made her words feel important. Kelvin, for all his wealth, offered nothing but a hollow shell. A few days later, Kelvin invited her to tea at a hotel garden. After some small talk, he leaned closer, his voice smooth as silk. "Amaka," he said, "I've seen the way you look at that Gateman, but be realistic. You are a Doyle. You deserve a life of security, of influence, of power. Can a Gateman give you that?" Amaka's eyes sharpened. For a moment, she saw the trap laid bare. He wasn't asking out of care. He was testing her, pushing her toward a choice that wasn't hers. Her answer came firm and clear. "What you call the life I deserve is just glitter. A lifestyle, not a life. Eric has something money can't buy. He has integrity. He has purpose. He listens. He cares. His heart is worth more than all the riches in the world." Kelvin leaned back, stunned by the conviction in her voice. Later, when he met Eric, he shook his head with respect. "She didn't even blink, my friend. She's the real deal. Don't you dare lose her." For the first time in weeks, Eric's fear lifted. Relief washed over him like cool rain. But guilt followed close behind. He had doubted her. He had tested her. And now, the lies between them weighed heavier than ever. It was time to tell her everything. But secrets have a way of unraveling faster than confessions. At the Doyle home, Ife and Mrs. Doyle whispered louder and louder, spreading their suspicion. Chris Bankole, an ambitious family friend nursing his own wounded pride, eagerly joined them. Together, they spun a tale of deceit. Eric is a fraud. He's manipulating Amaka. He's after the Doyle fortune. The story slithered through Lagos, gathering venom as it went. And when the Nigerian Business Arts Council hosted its annual reception, the perfect storm finally broke. The ballroom glittered with chandeliers, silk downs, and glasses of champagne. The Doyles were present, faces set in polished masks. Amaka moved through the crowd, uneasy, whispers following her like shadows. Then the room shifted. Conversations hushed. All eyes turned toward the entrance. A man had arrived, tall and commanding, his suit cut with quiet perfection. He walked with the calm confidence of someone who belonged. Amaka's breath caught in her throat. She knew that posture, that gaze. It was Eric, but not Eric the Gateman. The chairman of the council greeted him warmly. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce Mr. Chinedu Owen of Owen Industries." The name exploded like thunder. Gasps, whispers, stares. Owen Industries, the wealthiest private empire in West Africa. And in that moment, every eye turned to Amaka. The story rewrote itself in an instant. She wasn't a rebel loving a gateman. She was a schemer who had aimed higher than anyone thought possible. To the crowd, her love wasn't purity, it was strategy. Her face flushed as the whispers sharpened. The man she thought she knew was a stranger. The love she thought was real was being painted as a lie. And across the glittering ballroom, Chinedu's eyes found hers. They burned with apology, with regret, with a desperate plea. Please, understand. But the walls were already closing in. Morning light crept into the Doyle estate like an intruder. The air was heavy, the silence sharp, as if the walls themselves waited for judgment. Amaka barely slept. Images from the night before replayed over and over. Eric no. Chinedu Owen walking into the ballroom as if he owned it. Because in truth, he did. The heir to Owen Industries, a man born into power yet living in disguise at her family's gate. Her hands trembled as she tied her scarf. She wanted to be angry. She wanted to scream. But beneath the storm, something more dangerous stirred. Fear. Fear that her love had been made into a lie. The summons came before breakfast. Barrister Henry Adwale had requested the presence of the entire Doyle family at his chambers. The message was polite, but everyone knew what it meant. Secrets were about to be dragged into the light. The chambers smelled of leather and paper, the air cool and serious. The Doyles filed in Chief David Doyle at the head, his face a mask of thunder. Mrs. Ngozi Doyle followed, rigid with icy dignity. Ify trailed behind, her eyes restless, fingers twitching with nerves. Amaka sat stiffly, her chest tight, her heart pounding with anticipation and dread. At the center sat Barrister Adwale, spectacles low on his nose, a file open before him. Across from them stood Chinedu Owen. Not Eric. Not the gateman. The silence was thick until Henry spoke. We are here to discuss truth and to untangle lies. Mr. Owen, would you begin? Chinedu's voice was steady, though his shoulders carried a visible weight. My late father built Owen Industries from the dust of poverty. He feared wealth would corrupt his son, make me weak, entitled. So he wrote a condition into his will. Before I could inherit, I must spend a full year working a menial job under a false name. No access to my fortune, no shortcuts, only humility, only work. He looked around the room, his eyes landing on Amaka last. That is how I came to be at your gate. Eric was my disguise. But everything else, the conversations, the laughter, the dreams I shared was real. My heart was never a disguise. Amaka's throat tightened. She searched his face for deceit, but found only sorrow. Chief Doyle's voice rumbled like distant thunder. So you deceived my family for a year. Do you know the danger you placed us in? The risk? I understand your anger, Chief, Chinedu said quietly. But I did not choose your estate with ill intent. I came humbly. Your gate was where I found not just work, but truth. Your daughter, she saw me, even when I was invisible. The words hung heavy, daring anyone to dismiss them. But Barrister Adwale was not finished. He adjusted his glasses and pulled the second file forward. Now, let us address the lies told in this very family, because whispers have done as much damage as silence. He spread out evidence on the desk phone records, text messages, and a statement from a witness. These rumors of fraud, of manipulation, of a so-called con artist, they came not from strangers, but from Ify Doyle and her accomplice, Christopher Bankole. The room froze. Mrs. Doyle's head snapped toward her younger daughter. Ify? Her voice was sharp, cutting, disbelieving. Ify's lips trembled. Chief Doyle's roar shook the chamber. You spread lies about your own sister, about her honor, about this family's name? Ify broke then, collapsing into sobs. I was jealous. She has everything: her career, her confidence, father's pride. And then she had him. Everyone loved her, respected her. I hated it. I hated her. And when I saw the car, the calls, I thought I finally had proof she wasn't perfect. I told Mother, I told Chris. We made it worse. I didn't think it would spread so far. I didn't think you didn't think at all, Chief Doyle thundered. His disappointment was heavier than any slap. The room quieted, leaving the family alone with their wounds. Ify wept openly now, broken by her father's disappointment. Mrs. Doyle sat stiff, her usual control unraveling at the edges. Chief Doyle turned to Chinedu, his face hard but not unkind. "Mr. Owen, you deceived us, yes. But your deception was born of duty to your father, not malice. And I see the truth in your eyes when you speak of my daughter. You have my respect. And my blessing." He extended his hand. Slowly, Chinedu took it, a gesture heavy with meaning, the acceptance of a man he had once served as a guard. All eyes shifted to Mrs. Doyle. She sat still for a long time, her lips pressed tight. Then her gaze softened, just barely, as she looked at Amaka. "I was wrong," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I was blind. I thought status would protect you. I thought wealth was safety. But I see now it is character that holds a family together. And you have found a man of character." Her hand reached across the space and clasped her daughter's. "Be happy, Amaka. Forgive me." Tears slid down Amaka's cheeks as she gripped her mother's hand, a fragile bridge of love rebuilt. Later that evening, Amaka met Chinedu in the park by the lagoon where they had once sat in simpler times. He looked at her with a heaviness that words could not carry. "I am sorry," he said before she could speak, "for not telling you, for doubting you, for that foolish test with Kelvin. I should have trusted your heart." Amaka's breath caught. "You tested me?" He bowed his head. "Yes, I feared your love was pity. I asked Kelvin to see if you'd choose wealth over me. It was cowardice. I regret it with everything in me." Her anger flared. "You should have trusted me, Chinedu. Love cannot be tested like a piece of gold." "I know," he whispered, stepping closer. "It was fear, not love, that made me do it, and I will spend my life proving to you that I will never doubt you again, if you let me." Silence stretched. The lagoon rippled under the moonlight. Then Amaka's voice, soft but firm, broke it. "Fear is an old teacher. If we are to build something real, we must unlearn it together." Relief shone in his eyes. He took her hand gently, as though it were the most fragile thing in the world. But not all wounds heal in private. The Doyle family still carried fractures, and the city still carried rumors. Though Ife had confessed, the whispers had already left scars. Amaka felt their sting in every side glance, every hushed conversation. Some people preferred the lie to the truth, and in the shadows of Lagos, not everyone celebrated the union of Amaka Doyle and Chinedu Owen. Across town, Kelvin Adabio sipped his drink, remembering his role in the test. Though he respected Amaka, something unsettled him. In another corner, Chris Bankole nursed his humiliation, his wounded pride curdling into bitterness. And Ife, though broken in tears, still carried envy like an ember waiting to spark again. For every truth revealed, another danger lurked. In life, riches fade, status shifts, and names lose their shine. But the one thing that endures is character. For it is character that builds trust, trust that builds love, and love that builds legacies strong enough to outlast time.